Hey, everybody. Hope you're well, and hope this live stream finds you well. There's a lot of flotsam and jetsam flying around regarding Howard Terminal yet again because there's no public financing authority, or more pointedly, there's no Howard Terminal Stadium Authority when there should be. As I told the mayor now almost 3 months ago, 2 months ago when I interviewed her, if I were in charge, that's the first action I take, establishing the Howard Terminal Stadium Authority, because there's no focus, there's no sunshine. In other words, there's no legal reason for the city to be direct about where Howard Terminal is or give you a project update. So we haven't had one. And it flies in the face of projects and the way they've been done in Oakland, like, for example, the Warriors Arena. Or if you want to take an example that others not going to like, let's look at Las Vegas and Las Vegas Stadium Authority. You can look at any, or I should say most, stadium examples around the country, and you're going to find a stadium authority. But what you're going to find is an effort to focus and direct the process so that there's a flow of information that's put out so that you, the public, know what's happening, and yet information that the developers and the city don't want the public to know, don't feel the public should know yet, are put into closed session. They are put into archive. All right. So let me get to this news, and then I'll get to your questions. First of all, as some of you may be aware, the lawsuit that was filed by Union Pacific Railroad is now faced with the aftermath of a tentative ruling by the judge, okay, that he's likely to go with the city of Oakland argument, because it's the Union Pacific Railroad against the city of Oakland, and basically say, look, all of these issues have been addressed. There's no new road to be paved here, save for one issue, and that's wind. But it's really a big issue, but not for the reasons you expect. Now, wind refers to just that, the wind that will be generated by the ballpark, and where that wind will go after the ballpark is completed and open. That. Here's a catch, though. The catch is that there's no way to determine what that wind flow is going to look like, because there's no final drawing for the stadium. You heard me correctly. There's no final drawing for the stadium. A final drawing means you know what the height's going to be, the circumference. You have all of these configurations that are known, so that you can say, all right, this is what we're going to get. And it's a big issue because you can't do a development agreement with drawings that are not done. Okay. So it leads to the other question of this: where are the A's? Where are the A's in the process? Okay, where are the A's in the process? And where's the city? Okay. If I go now, as I'm talking with you, to the City of Oakland website, oakland.ca.gov, and the Howard Terminal section, it's not going to give me a monthly update. Okay. By contrast, if I go to the Las Vegas Stadium Authority website, there are monthly updates and agenda items going all the way back to 2016. right now. They're there right now. So basically, you have disorganization in Oakland and organization in Las Vegas. All right. That's for the Raiders issue. That's for the Raiders issue. Now, getting back to the lawsuit, the ruling is tentative. The big day that you want to watch out for is September 2nd. That's this Friday, because that's when we get the real picture of where the East Oakland Stadium Alliance lawsuit is going to go, the one that I call frivolous and that I debated with Mike Jacob, my friend who represents the Pacific Marine Shipping Association, here about 2 weeks ago. That was a fun debate. I love talking with Mike. And by the way, if you want to get an in-depth understanding regarding how an economic development planner and a lawyer, or more accurately with Mike, a land use lawyer, think about how a terminal and how they might work together, you should watch our interchange. You're not going to get it anywhere else. The other people that are talking about this have no urban planning background. They're broadcasters that talk to Dave Cobble, which is great. I love Dave, president of the Athletics, okay? But they don't have an intrinsic understanding of how to build something. And they haven't been in a situation like I have, where you have to evaluate what a developer is proposing for the city of Oakland, what the financing looks like, as I've done, and what the subsidy is going to be that the city and the county are expected to give, and if that subsidy is too much, among other things. Okay. And then, of course, there's the matter of the EIR. And that's up for question right now. Also, it's important to remember, because I think Mike would like to forget this, is that the Bonta Assembly bill that was passed that streamlines the IR process is law. Okay. You can't just say, oh, gee, well, that's something that VA's got, and we're not going to pay attention to it because we don't like the fact that it was streamlined. It's law. And within that, it means that every organization along the value chain of approvals essentially has a right to speed up its review. That's what that means. That's what that means. And basically, that's what you got. Okay. But the bottom line is, exactly where are we with the project? And that is a big fat. Okay, here. All right. Now, it says, what do you think the odds are of these staying or leaving right now? I would say right now they're 50-50, because it's a good question, Alan. Thanks for asking it. And hey, Barry, how you doing? Barry says, hey. The Las Vegas case in the context of the Athletics is dramatically different than that for the Raiders for a number of reasons. First of all, if we take the Raiders as a model, and really we should, all right, if we take the Raiders as a model of relocation out of Oakland, all right, then we say that, and this is really true for a lot of relocations, if you take a look at them, there's always a driving person at the helm, right? There's always someone that, but for that person's existence, that relocation would not have happened. And in the Raiders case, you point to Shell Nattles, rest in peace, the great man who really transformed much of Las Vegas and gave new meaning to fun as an adult in casinos in Sin City. It's a big loss to the world, in my opinion, regardless of your politics. If you're a fan of development, you love Shell Nattles, period. I keep saying Adelson. I think it's Adelson. At any rate, um, were it not for him, there would be no Raiders in Las Vegas because he was the person that spearheaded the $750 million subsidy. All right. So, with respect to Las Vegas, comparing the A's situation, there's no obvious champion right now. Phil Ruffin comes close, but until Mr. Ruffin makes a public appearance and states crystal clear intentions regarding the athletics in Las Vegas, it's still a question mark. A wish fulfillment expressed through news accounts that are here and there parenthetically available. So the problem that Dave Cobble has in Vegas, as a number of people who are in Las Vegas who are in a position to know have told me as recently as yesterday, where's the person that's stewarding him, helping him out? There's no meeting, there's no scheduled meaningful government meeting. That doesn't mean the government isn't involved. That doesn't mean the governor isn't interested in it. But there's a feeling that the governor kind of wants this whole thing to be pushed until after the November election. And then they can get the ball rolling. Okay. So if it seems like it's quiet in Las Vegas, I'm giving you a picture of the structure of reasons why that appearance is there. It's not too quiet because it has a tendency to make that structure of news coming out of there has a tendency to be really quiet, and then zits, something interesting happens, right? Okay. And right now, though, I would say, given Las Vegas' overall desire to build a sports economic development structure, it's more likely than not that they're trying to get the A's there. And I believe the Athletics have ran into some complications regarding land purchase because, I mean, look at this in total. Dave Cobble told me last year, a year ago, that the A's were going to release their drawings for Las Vegas. Remember that? Okay. That was a year ago. It was expected to happen after the World Series. So here comes the World Series, no drawings for Las Vegas. Okay, nothing. So maybe you think, hey, next year, right? Next year comes, it's January. No drawings for Las Vegas. The only drawing that came out during that time was by my friend Bob Garcia, who created the Stadium 51 concept that ESPN mistook for the actual design of the stadium that's supposed to go someplace in the Las Vegas, at or near the Las Vegas Strip. And Mr. Garcia is somebody I think the A's should employ or should have employed by now. That's another story. But again, it underscores the point. There's no official drawing from the Athletics that says, this is the stadium design we want in Las Vegas. Okay? Nothing. So you think, all right, maybe March, nothing. Then, of course, there's news that came out from Contessa Brewer with CNBC when she was in Secaucus, New Jersey, if memory serves, supposedly talking to some mysterious casino guy who happened to know what's going on in Las Vegas, but they're in Secaucus. All right. And she purely on that basis, and this demonstrates how ridiculous it is for media to focus on a source just because it has a C, a K, or a W in its name. Like CNBC, or you get the idea, WCBS or whatever. It's a big mistake. Bad information does not know a title. Bad information is just that. It's bad information. She was told, hey, Bally's is going to purchase this, and they're going to get they're going to get a location at where the Tropicana is, right? And that was out there. Okay. The trouble is that this is, I believe, goes to where the A's have had some difficulty. You have to analyze the land there. You got earthquake issues to deal with. Yes, earthquakes, because do you realize there's 7 different fault lines that crisscross through Las Vegas Strip area in downtown? Yeah, 7. Allegiant Stadium is just less than a mile from one of them. Just right up Polaris. Just drive up Polaris about 3 long blocks, and you'll hit the beginning of it. Okay, literally. So, and keep that in mind, because that thing has not done that in quite some time. I'm not wishing for it to, but I did point it out, and people got upset with me. But hey, maps are maps. They tell you what's there, right? Just do your research, you'll find them. It's the internet. Anyway, I digress. So the Las Vegas situation is such that when you look at how it's unfolding, and you consider the politics, and then you consider the process that has to be done to evaluate if one should buy land, it's not something that happens in a snap. And so what I believe is going on is that my friend Dave has used this situation in its entirety to buy time, and buying time for different reasons, not just one reason, but for different reasons. And morning, Cameron Burrell, and he's done that on a number of occasions. I've checked my relationship math, if you will, my communications math with other people who agree that he uses information to make you think they're on a particular path that the A's may very well not be on. All right. I mean, they can say they're almost on it, but they're not quite on it. Okay. And he's done this quite a bit. You could say it's genius from one perspective, but from another perspective, like trying to figure out where we are with this project, is quite maddening. And if we're going through it and we're the public, then it's quite possible the city of Oakland is going through it too. Keep that in mind. Meaning that where we are is not entirely the fault of the city, even though the city, I still contend, shares 70% of the blame. But based on what I was told yesterday, from a source who I regard as a good friend, Dave needs help in Las Vegas. He needs a ombudsman, okay? An ombudsman, all right? An ombudsman, okay? And right now, absent what Phil Ruffin is doing, and I know something is going on, it doesn't appear that he has one. He certainly doesn't going to get in the face of Mark Davis. Mark Bedane is around there someplace. I can't say that Mark isn't involved or not talking, but look, Mark Bedane does not have a good relationship with the Oakland A's, and that starts with Dave Cobble. And so where are they now? They're not in Oakland. They're in Las Vegas. Oh, boy. All right. They're in Las Vegas. So I hope that lays it out, Al, as to where things are at. There's another one here. This is a stupid comment. I'm going to address it. It says, no fake news before you comment, but you're talking about earthquakes. No, I'm not talking about earthquakes. And it's important to listen in context rather than, writing stupid comments like this, which could basically get you booted. Okay. If you try to develop something, or be involved in the process of developing something, either for the government or for yourself. And I thank God it's not for you, because if you're trying to develop something for yourself and you don't even think to check out earthquake faults or sinkholes, guess what? You're quite likely to be eaten by one of them. I'm serious. I mean, you write this and you think this is a great comment, but it's patently stupid. And I don't mean to be insulting, but you asked for it. Seriously. Okay? So what I'm going to do is remove this. I've addressed it. But it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay? So moving forward, the simple fact of the matter is, and it gets to my point, so I'm glad you wrote it, you should know the topography of the land. You know what the term means? Topography, the lay of the land, how it rolls, what's beneath it, water flow, and earthquake faults. And not only that, if the fault is active. Guess what? The fault that I'm telling you about has been active over the past 30 years. It's also in a 100-year floodplain, but you're going to tell me, given what you said, oh, well, you're talking about fake news and you're talking about floods. Well, yeah, because even though floods don't occur every day, and thankfully they don't, guess what? They're pretty hard to deal with when they happen. Okay? So we're talking about that, all right? Okay? And, all right? Okay? So, all right? So, that gets to why you don't just go out and buy land. Caveat emptor, right? Let the buyer beware. That applies here. So the reason why this has taken that much time is because you have to make absolutely certain you know what's going on underneath the land that you are going to build a $2 billion structure on. That's why. It's called great risk management. You should try it sometime. All right, moving forward. Eric says, it looks like the judge is seeing through these bogus lawsuits. I don't know that. Look, first of all, I do agree that, and I told Mike Jacob this, and I love Mike, that the current lawsuit, I believe, is frivolous. And because, again, the whole process is fast-tracked, A. B, at what point do you stop analyzing a project? From my conversations with Mike and reading what they wrote, you can make the argument that the endpoint is asymptotical. In other words, it just keeps getting smaller and 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 smaller, but it never goes away, right? It just keeps going, So a few years later, you're like, they're still looking at that thing. Okay. But guess what, folks? Now, Attorney General Bonta put the kibosh on that possible outcome. That's what his assembly bill was all about. Back in 2019, the one that Gavin signed into law on that famous October 11th, 2019 day, they also signed the law SB 293 Skinner. All right. So now here's the thing about the lawsuits are not bogus. I don't want to go with that. I don't want to go there. Although you would say I just used the term frivolous, and I did. But a frivolous lawsuit is generally based on a very real claim about a concern about something. And so if the lawsuit gets as far, look, and first of all, Mike Jacob doesn't like lawsuits that don't get seen by the court. Okay? He just doesn't. So you have to start right there. And you have to say, okay, and as the judge will, all right, what part of this has merit in my opinion? And that's where we get to the wind issue, which I don't think you were here to discuss. And the fact that we don't know how tall the stadium is going to be, how its specifications lay out in terms of circumference, because there's no final yet. And if there's no final, we can't have a development agreement. So that September 20th date that's out there for the council to review, I ain't seeing it. All right. The question is, how far can they get in Las Vegas, or are getting in Las Vegas, in terms of drawings and design? That's something the government hasn't seen. Now, they're also working with Stephen Hill at the Las Vegas Stadium Authority, who created the Las Vegas Stadium Authority, and who is the president and CEO of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Bureau. Simple fact that they're working with Steve means that they want to get this done, and they need a champion. And so they've decided to work with him as their ombudsman. This is a new development. Okay. That's a new development. And so he says, this reminds me that you can't make Zinni mad again. I was under my old account and whatever. I don't think that was you. Anyway, let's see here. That's a good point, sir. How long have they been analyzing this project? You're right. It's time to stop analyzing and move forward. They've been well, it's not so much the project, Barry, it's the land. All right. But in terms of the EIR, you're right. It's been about a year and a half, I would say, thereabouts. A year and a half. And then it's a matter of it's time to stop analyzing moving forward, because look, guess what? It's law. The law calls for a fast track review process. All right. And the law calls for a fast track review process. Okay. And so that guides everything else that happens within it, including these lawsuits, including the criticism regarding BCDC process that Mike wants to launch. All right. So Zinni, when is the only problem the judge sees a possible problem? This is good for the A's. Oh, it's very good. Oh yeah, all of this is good for the A's. It's great for the A's, actually. It really is. I also remind everyone we're in the middle of a world recession. The A's lost $40 million last year. It's quite likely the A's are not going to lose $40 million this year, but they're going to lose money yet again. They're trying to mitigate that. So unless you have someone out there that's willing to pluck $1 billion down and make their investments, the A's have made investments in the city and the staff, all right? Unless you have that, and unless you have a government that's willing to pay staff in the Las Vegas Inn and everything else, and I think that's happening to some degree, you've got to assume, because that's all we've got right now, that part of the slowdown in this has to do with just the direction the economy is going, and to what degree financing can be lined up at a favorable cost under this environment. In other words, is this the proper way to go? The trouble that the A's have is that the obvious continuing and worsening decline of the Coliseum without a plan to refurbish it is becoming the need to have a new stadium somewhere that much more. This is being played out in the public. People going into the stadiums, going to sit down in a seat, a common seat that you can find anywhere in the stadium. And oh, by the way, it just happens to come off in your hands. What? Okay. I mean, feral cats and all that stuff, whatever. But it's an open air stadium. It's not properly closed. What do you expect? It's also not properly maintained because you have cats and other vermin running around there. What does it mean? It means there's food that someone hasn't cleaned up. That's great for animals to eat. So where are they going to go? Hey, let's go to the Coliseum for dinner. Boom, there they go. All right. I want to clean up the stadium. But then, of course, that comes down to cost. And the city is just sort of letting, not the city really isn't in control. It's the Coliseum JPA. But the Coliseum JPA is playing the deferred maintenance role, it would seem, because there's no obvious example that the entire stadium has been cleaned and all this food stuff that's around there thrown away, steamed and everything else. Now, there has been that done in certain areas of the stadium, but not in its entirety. There's a reason this is happening. It doesn't just happen because, it's Oakland, right? No, there are reasons for this. They come under the heading of lack of investment, lack of money. The city could turn that around if you use tax increment financing, but hey, it wants to play the, hey, we're broke role and we have to go to the federal government for aid, which is ridiculous because it doesn't. The city is sitting on billions it could use, but by the mayor's explanation to me, they don't have the staff to do it, and apparently she doesn't want to hire the one guy that can get it done tomorrow, and that's the guy you're looking at. Moving forward. Thank you, Barry Lee, for that. He says, can I ask, with the almost non-existent attendance with attendance, how do they stay afloat? Major League Baseball revenue sharing is one. Sponsorships, which are active, is another. Sales of jerseys to people like yourself. They have a base of people who bought season tickets. Is the stream of revenue low compared to past years? Yes, it is. Is that a problem? Yes, it is. Have they borrowed money from some source? Undoubtedly. Is it a good thing to do? Yeah, because the future is going to be brighter. We're going to get out of this, and the A's, at some point, somewhere, will have a new stadium, and that new stadium will deliver billions of dollars of value to the organization. Zenny, when is the Alameda County vote on the project? That was supposed to come in October, but I can't think it's October 6th. I need to re-review that. I'm wincing because I can't see anybody making that date just right now, considering that we are, a stone's throw away from September already. So I hope that lays everything out. And folks, as I close, remember this. Buying land is not at all, not a simple process. You've got to concern yourself with the possibility. Oh, how's this? Oh, Al Carbos asks, one moment. If Governor Sisolak, this is a great question, folks. And Al, I now remember that you posted this, and I got so far down the pipe, I missed it. So I'm glad you reposted it. If Governor Sisolak of Nevada loses re-election to his GOP opponent in November, would that increase or decrease the A's chances of getting public funds in Las Vegas? Increase, because with respect to sports, you have to remember it was under a Republican legislature, all right, that Sheldon Adelson was able to get the money that he wanted from the legislature, the $750 million bond issue done. That was a Republican governor. That was Brian Sandoval, all right, And that was a mostly Republican legislature. So can it happen again? Yeah. I have to say candidly, yeah. And that's not to say anything. And I remind you of this. I want to clean this before it gets dirty. If there's any Democrat that's most capable of building a stadium in Las Vegas, it's Governor Sisolak, because he did it as the head of Clark County Commission before then. All right, he's an old school Democrat who believes in jobs, and building, and so he's not going to turn away from that. He's not even going to give the appearance that he's going to turn away from that. So I don't want to say, oh yeah, if Steve loses, it's a better chance. My point is that Republicans have a track record of accomplishing the effort of getting a subsidy for a stadium, in this case, the Raiders. All right. Now, one could say, well, that was just the Raiders. All right, fine. Yeah, I know there was a huge infrastructure, people behind it, but there's also a process laid out that can be replicated. And the same people behind the Raiders process are now in charge. And one of those people is basically Steve Sisolak. And that is, look, arguably that's what got him governor. That's what got him the governorship. So I wouldn't count out my friend Steve Sisolak. All right. In fact, if you're watching this and you live in Las Vegas, vote for Steve. He's a great guy. Does anyone with the other Major League Baseball owners get tired and pay Fisher money every year? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know that that's even that posits a negative relationship that doesn't exist anyway. So I'm not even going to address that beyond what I've just said. All right, everybody. Thank you. We'll be back later. Subscribe to Zinni62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnowblog.com. That ends this broadcast.